Singapore's labour market recorded robust growth in the third quarter. Latest figures reveal that total employment grew 22,300, nearly double what was recorded in the previous 3 months. Now, this was fueled by increases in both resident and non-resident employment. Eugene Chow with more.
Resident employment rose 4,000, rebounding from the decline of 600 in the second quarter. They were favoured in outward-oriented sectors such as information and communications, professional and financial services.
Especially in the ICT and financial services, I think they also suffered most of the redundancies and restructures of the past year and a half or so. And now that we see a bit more stronger employer confidence, they are the ones who are rebounding probably slightly ahead of other sectors.
And as to why local residents might have been favoured.
So they are highly qualified and they know the market very well. Has gone through the Singapore education system. They understand better the nuances, the culture, dynamics, and are able to perhaps fit in faster into the organizations too.
Non-resident employment also rose by 18,200, driven mainly by the hiring of work permit holders in construction and manufacturing. The Manpower Ministry says there are generally not enough resident workers in these sectors, which comprises mostly blue-collar workers.
Retrenchments fell to 3,050 in the third quarter this year, from 3,270 in the previous quarter. Analysts say this downtrend is expected to continue into next year, with more job vacancies filled over time. Sabrina Ng with more.
Companies like Ninja Van shed workers in the third quarter this year, citing business restructuring. Still, overall retrenchment figures, as well as the number of employees placed on short-term work week or temporary layoffs, stayed low.
When we see a decline in retrenchment, basically it's a good sign. Employment numbers normally come after economic activities or performance. So in other words, what we are seeing is a sure sign of growth in the economy that has seemed to be happened.
I feel global large-scale layoffs have tapered off. So we are towards the tail end of such news, hopefully. And there is optimism about further interest rate cuts, which helps to boost sentiment around fundraising via equity and debt. So that definitely helps venture or privately backed companies. And on the public markets,
the number of workers who found jobs within 6 months after being laid off also soared to 60.4% in the third quarter, from a low of 55% the previous quarter. Analysts say that's because skilled workers are still high in demand.
For example, healthcare life sciences, energy sector, commodities sectors. These are skill sets that, like candidates with the existing knowledge. So those candidates who have been made redundant from these places would actually find themselves to be in demand, right? More than they expected. And they can then re-enter the industry very quickly because there's existing knowledge that they can bring to their new prospective employers.
While the number of job vacancies in the third quarter stood at over 63,000, down from over 80,000 in June, there were still more job openings than unemployed persons.
I think, if anything, it's an indicator that hiring has sped up and the positions are being filled a little bit quicker, whether it be permanent or contract. So I don't think that's anything to be concerned about in the short to medium term. I think it's more of an indication that companies are now looking to hire and get these hires done quicker before the end of the calendar year, as we sort of enter into holiday season.
Analysts say the year-end festive holiday season should mean more labour demand, and that the labour market is expected to remain tight in 2025, with wages and employment continuing to grow along with the economy.
Slower resident employment growth is expected in Singapore due to high labour force participation and slower workforce growth. To maintain competitiveness, the country will continue to rely on skilled foreign workers to create quality jobs for locals. But how has the growth of non-resident workers like S-Pass and employment pass holders impacted higher skilled jobs in Singapore? Well, over the past decade, for every increase in higher skilled non-resident workers, 10 jobs for Singaporeans professionals, managers, executives, and technicians, or PMETs, were created. And during this period, resident PMET employment grew by 382,000, while the number of employment pass, or EP, and S-pass holders rose by 38,000, highlighting the positive impact of skilled foreign talent on local job opportunities. Now, this trend was also evident in sectors that employ the most EP holders, including financial and insurance services, professional services, and information and communications. And over the past decade, the number of EP and S-pass holders in these sectors rose by 17,000, while resident PMET employment increased by 172,000.
I think what is going on is that Singapore is really trying to move up the ladder and bring in more professionals, technicians, engineers to help in terms of productivity and efficiency of the country. And I think one area where Singapore could kind of say, okay, this is another area we should focus on is aging, healthcare, because that's a big area where we will need employment growth in the future.